the survival mindset, how your brain reacts to crisis. The difference between those who survive and those who don't often comes down to a single moment, the ability to control fear. Fear can keep you alive, or it can get you killed. Ironic, isn't it? I learned this the hard way. Oh man, I remember that one morning in November deep in the East Texas woods. The air was crisp, and the sun was just starting to cut through the early fog. I was following the fresh set of perfect trails and was damn sure that I was going to get my freezer filled with meat, just when it took one step too far, and that was it. The ground beneath my feet gave way, and before I could think, I started sliding down fast, very fast. I tumbled down a steep ravine, dirt and rocks kicking up around my body and my rifle slipping from my hands. When I finally stopped, I was flat on my back, staring up straight at the sky, gasping for breath. My body was aching, and I felt a sharp pain around my chest as if I had broken some ribs. That was the moment when it hit me. My backpack was somewhere above me, my rifle was out of reach, and my phone was nowhere to be found. And guess what was even worse? I had no idea how to climb back up. Like a normal human body's reaction to such a situation, I panicked, too. Even if it was just for a second, fear took over. I felt my heart pounding in my chest, but that was the moment that determined everything. I had two options. I could either let fear take control, or I could take control of my fear. So I got up and took charge. That's the difference between those who survive and those who don't. It's not always about skills, experience, or strength. It's about whether or not you can control your fear when it matters the most. So, in this chapter, we'll talk about the Bushcraft mindset, the one where you learn how to control your fear and not let it take charge. You'll learn how your brain reacts to danger and why some people freeze and others take action. About the 3 psychological phases of survival and what happens in your brain the moment your body faces survival situations. The science behind stress and fear, why your body reacts the way it does in extreme pressure situations, and what you can do to train yourself in such situations. How survival experts train themselves to stay calm and focused. By the end of this chapter, I'm sure you'll understand why controlling fear is the foundational aspect of survival. Furthermore, you'll be able to train yourself to react with clarity and confidence in survival situations. Understanding the psychology of survival. Let's understand the psychology behind survival. The instinctive brain versus the rational brain. When it comes to survival, it's not about what you do, but how your brain reacts during a crisis. At the core of every life or death situation, there's a battle happening in your brain between 2 key players, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The instinctive brain, the side housed in a tiny little part of the brain known as the amygdala. It controls your primitive emotional side and is built for fast reaction and immediate survival. This side of the brain triggers fear, panic, and gut-driven responses. The rational brain. The rational brain is primarily run by the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for logic, problem-solving, reasoning, and decision-making. It helps you evaluate situations and act strategically. Under normal circumstances, your rational brain is in charge, which helps you think critically through problems, make plans, and act with purpose. But as soon as your body hits a crisis, your instinctive brain takes over, and that's exactly when things often go wrong. But why exactly did that happen? Well, because when you face sudden danger, your brain doesn't wait for you to process and evaluate the situation logically. So it reacts instantly. For example, if a predator attacked you, taking time to analyze the situation would definitely get you killed. However, your brain is smart enough to prioritize immediate action over deep thought. But here's the problem. Your instinctive brain doesn't always work the way it should. Let's understand it with some real situations. The wrong move, when instinct leads to disaster. Let's say you're on a hike alone in the back country and suddenly you hear a low growl behind you. That's right, a bear's there. Your body freezes, your heart drops, and before you can even process the whole situation, your legs are already running a marathon. Bad move. Why? First of all, running away triggers the bear's chase instinct. They chase anything that runs, even if they aren't planning to attack. Your sudden movement could definitely make them see you as prey. Secondly, you cannot outrun a bear. They run with a speed of up to 35 miles per hour. No human on earth can outrun a charging bear. A logic response would be to stay calm, avoid sudden movements, and assess the possible options you have. But your initiative mind doesn't care about logic. It just tells you to get the hell out of there, which in this case puts you in even more danger. Now let's compare the same situation with someone who has trained their mind for survival. The right move. How a rational mind can save your life. Think of someone who knows very well how to stay calm in a crisis situation and has been practicing mental discipline for years. They hear the same low growl behind them, but instead of running immediately from the situation, they pause, take a deep breath, and remind themselves of the following. Running isn't an option. Don't turn your back. Slowly step sideways to create a distance and try not to make a sound. If the bear takes charge, don't run. Just stay still or make slow or calm movements. This helps them to increase their chances of survival. How does the amygdala trigger panic? The amygdala is known as the alarm system of our brain. The moment it senses danger, it triggers the body to produce stress hormone, cortisol, which forces you into one of these automatic responses. The fight response, when your body tenses and prepares to defend itself. The flight response, when you feel an overpowering urge to run away whether it makes sense or not. The freeze response, when your body locks up and is unable to move or react at all. For most of my life, I assumed if I ever got caught in a true survival situation, I'd either fight through it or figure my way out quickly. But that's not always how our brain works. Sometimes, the worst response isn't running the wrong way. It's doing nothing at all. It's when our brain freezes and the body stops working. Let's look at an example of this. Freeze response. Let's say a hunter, just like you and me, is sitting in his stand, patiently waiting for the first sign of movement during the twilight hours in the woods. He's calm, focused, and ready to hunt any moment. Suddenly, a sharp snapping sound behind him breaks the silence. He knows something big is moving. His mind immediately started racing. Is it a buck? What if it's a bear? Or a coyote? Before he can fully process it, he sees the dark shape of a wild hog coming straight toward him. His heart starts pounding in his chest. He knows how aggressive hogs can be. He knows they can harm him. He knows he should react, but he doesn't move at all. He's completely frozen. His entire body is locked up, and his mind is black. By the time he finally realizes and forces himself to react, it's already too late. This is how freezing under stress can cause damage. Now let's take a look at how a trained hunter would handle the same exact situation. Controlled response. Let me tell you how I would react in the same situation. I hear the snap of a branch behind me and spot the hog. But instead of freezing, I force myself to exhale, instead of holding my breath. I shift my mental focus from fear to action. I tell myself, I know what to do. Move now. I slowly adjust my position without making sudden movements. I then raise my rifle deliberately, not frantically, keeping my mind focused on the next step and fire. If necessary, I also shout forcefully to startle the hog before it gets too close to me. By staying in control of my fear, I avoid freezing, and that helps me make a clear-headed survival decision. So, how do you train yourself to do the same? That's where cognitive reframing comes in. Overriding fear with cognitive reframing. Let's talk about how cognitive reframing works and how it helps us overcome fear. However, let's first learn what cognitive reframing is. What is cognitive reframing? Cognitive reframing is a psychological technique where an individual can consciously shift the way they perceive a situation or an event by actively reinterpreting it more constructively and positively. For example, in our case, instead of letting panic dictate our actions, we train our brains to reframe fear as something useful. Survivalists, expert hunters, elite military personnel, and bushcraft practitioners constantly practice this technique. They train themselves in a way that helps them see fear not as a threat, but as a trigger for action, whether it's navigating through dense forest, crafting tools from raw material, or enduring cold nights with minimal gear. The more you expose your mind to adversity, the less power fear will have over you. How do survival experts override panic? This is what expert survivalists do, recognizing fear for what it is. Instead of letting fear take control, trained survivalists acknowledge it. This is just my brain alarming me about danger, but I control how I respond. Reframing fear as a call to action. Instead of thinking negatively like, I'm going to die, they shift their mindset to, I need to focus, take control, and think of my next step. Using tactical breathing to regain control. A simple breathing technique, or simply deep breathing, can help reduce panic in seconds. One of the most effective and commonly used techniques, also used by Navy SEALs, includes inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 4 seconds, and then exhaling for 4 seconds. This helps slow down your heart rate and bring back your rational thinking mind. Now, tell me what you would do if you were walking through thick brush and suddenly heard the unmistakable sound of a rattlesnake. What's your plan? Would you jump back suddenly, risking a strike? Or would you stay calm, control your breathing, and carefully assess your next move? The answers that come to your mind tell you exactly where you stand on the scale of survival skills training. Jumping back might feel like the natural response, but it also increases the chance of stepping into another danger, such as another snake, unstable ground, or a thick brush that traps you and limits your mobility. A trained survivalist, on the other hand, would hold his instinct to panic, stay completely calm, and assess the threat before making any move. This is what we call cognitive reframing. The ability to shift your brain's reaction from fear-driven panic to calm and rational thinking. Now that you understand how your brain responds to fear, the next step is to recognize the psychological phase of survival and how to move through the situation quickly to take control of any crisis. The 3 psychological phases of survival. Whenever we face a life or death situation, our brain doesn't snap into action right away. It goes through some mental process before making a move. These processes have been broken down into 3 phases. Denial, the refusal to accept the reality when something is wrong. Deliberation, the struggle to process the situation and decide what to do next. The decisive moment, the action that determines your survival. Phase 1, denial. Why most people ignore danger. Let's be real for a second. People don't like sudden change, even in obvious situations like emergencies. Many hesitate because their brain doesn't accept the reality of the situation. Think about how you react when you hear bad news. When someone hears something bad or shocking, their first instinct is often as follows. No way, this can't happen to me. No, this isn't real. I must have misunderstood something. It'll be fine. Nothing will happen. This is denial. In life or death situations, denial is more dangerous than any other situation because it wastes time. And we know that in an emergency, time is everything. Even a single second can determine whether you'll survive or not. What does denial look like in a survival situation? Let's say you're on a hunt, sitting in your hunting blind, waiting for a white tail to enter your ranger. The air is crisp, the temperature is fine, the woods seem peaceful, and everything is just as it should be. But suddenly you smell smoke. What would be your first thought? Am I smelling